This is why nature and I don't get along. Ready for some fishing stories and accidents? I'm your host Youssef, and these are 10 scary fishing accidents that will leave you in shock. Make sure you subscribe and ring that bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, let's cast the line. Number 10, Barracuda Scare. When I was younger, my dad and I went deep sea fishing all the time. The creepiest thing that ever happened to me was when we decided to do a little more surface fishing further out on the open ocean, rather than fish for grouper and whatnot. So I'm sitting with my feet off the edge of the boat, and my dad hooks a fish. It seems pretty big based on the way it was pulling, so I look over to see if he needs help. Then something slowly brushes my legs. I looked down and there was a 4 to 5 foot barracuda brushing against my legs. I froze, and seconds later it shot off. When my dad felt the line go slack, he started reeling in faster. The barracuda had bitten off most of the fish. It was only a mouth on a hook, really. That came from Reddit user Your Monarch. Number 9, something big. But the creepiest story was a simple one. The crew was shark fishing off the bank of a smaller tanker ship, basically attaching meat chunks to hooks and throwing them off the back to trawl in the ocean. They were in Southeast Asia or Australia area. For fun, my dad made this large hook to use, possibly from steel alloy, and described it as being incredibly durable. They attached a large chunk of meat to it and threw it off the back. A while later, they hauled it back in, only to find the meat was gone and the hook bent completely straight. There was nothing it could have snagged on in the deep ocean as the boat was driving through. My dad and the crew were sufficiently unnerved to think that something large down there could bend a large hook like that. Number 8, lack of sleep. I've been fishing in Alaska for the last 6 summers with my dad. I've never seen anything unexplainable, but I have been creeped out a few times. A lot of it comes from lack of sleep, because we were up there for up to 60 hours at a time with no more than 4 hours between every time we put the net out. Really, the weirdest things are in my own head. I'll have waking dreams where I can't move or something very dangerous is happening. I sometimes wake up completely disoriented and nervous, which makes working hard. I should probably stop fishing. Says Reddit user Grooving Up Slowly. Number 7, bull shark ambush. One day while we were off the coast of North Carolina doing some grouper and snapper fishing, the bite suddenly fell off and everything disappeared off the scope. Everyone's rods bent over at the same time and we all had something enormous on our lines. After about 15 minutes of slowly bringing our lines up, we all had 15-foot long bull sharks on. They were completely calm, no thrashing or anything. The creepy part was, right below them in the water was a wall of bull sharks, and there had to be hundreds of them. They were just swimming in circles. We dehooked them and they slowly swam back with the giant school. We left. Reddit user Hostan. Number 6, avoided emergency. The first time I went fishing with my dad and brother, we stood at the end of a pier, looking like dolts, not knowing what the heck we were doing. A nice guy on the opposite end of the pier came over and gave us a hand setting up. He also gave us some tips on casting off and then left us to it. After a while, my brother realized he had a bite and reeled it in. He pulled up a really ugly looking fish and was about to grab it off the line when the guy who had been helping us previously shouted across, "Don't touch that!" He came over and explained to us that it was a lesser weaver which has poisonous spines on it. He just cut the line and kicked it back alive before explaining that you can't end them in case they wash up on the beach. So if that guy is reading this, thanks for saving us a trip to A&E. Number 5, shark under the kayak. I looked behind and below me and there was the biggest freaking bull shark I'd ever seen just undulating along under my kayak. It was the size of a fridge, over 10 feet. It was an absolute giant and it was gliding along silently under my kayak in 8 feet of water. I pulled up my paddle and coasted to a stop. It glouted out under the nose and did a full circle and made another pass under my yak before gliding off back to the deep channel. I radioed my bro and warned him of the monster that was around. This came from Reddit user Javari. Number 4, angry eel. Creepiest thing when I was about 12. I was spearfishing on the reef near my house. Basically just being a stupid kid, trying to poke holes in things. Out of the corner of my eye, I see about a 3-foot moray eel swimming above the reef. I decided to try to spear it, and succeeded, sort of. Basically, I speared the very end of its tail. I panicked a little because the thing was long enough to swing around and bite me. But instead of doing that, it kind of thrashed around a little and then seemed to collect its senses, turn toward the point of the spear, bite down, and then pull its own tail off of the end points. Number 3, boat being towed by fish. I worked as a commercial sailor for about 10 years and chartered boats as a kid. A captain I know was anchored amongst some of the other boats with lines out there when he started moving forward into the tide. He ended up having another boat go look, and it turned out a manta ray had slung along his anchor line and had gotten the anchor stuck on its head. I believe he ended up having to cut the anchor free, but this was a 30-foot inboard fishing boat, so the fact that he was being towed by a fish was pretty remarkable, says Reddit user Mercury Ballistic. Number 2, a rogue wave. The scariest thing that ever happened to me was probably a run-of-the-mill rogue wave. It happened while commercial snapper fishing off Florida. Conditions were well within the safety range of the 25-foot boat, with probably 3 to 5 foot waves, nothing unusual for Florida during wintertime. All of a sudden, I get sucked back in my seat as we pass into a very large waves trough. I was then thrown upward violently and nearly into the air and went out of my seat. I had to grab the stern gunwale so that I wouldn't fall the 7 to 8 foot drop that separated me and the guy I was just sitting next to. If the wave had been any bigger, he would have gone overboard into the nighttime swells, and there's a very good chance we would have lost him since we were anchored up. It's not supernatural, but it really is creepy to know on any day of the year the ocean can try to end you even though you're doing nothing unsafe, Reddit user Tishmaster had to say. Number 1, shots fired. Buddy and me were out in a small John boat after midnight in a state-owned lake. This lake is relatively small. A group of people showed up at one of the public parking places and started a fire. They were noisy as hell, but we ignored them. Then they started cheering each other on, and out came the rifles. We heard shots all around us. We immediately headed to the boat ramp, and we got close to the ramp. They got in their vehicle and drove off. Left the fire going on and everything. Scared the crap out of me for fear of being shot, said Redditor Wood Tick. Thanks for watching. Those were 10 scary fishing accidents that will leave you in shock. Leave a like and comment if you think we missed anything, and we hope you have a fishy day.